Hello, and welcome to Leadership is a Philosophy, Not a Checklist, book review number 6. This is going to be on leadership by Rudy Giuliani. Now, before I get accused of being clickbaity or trying to take advantage of the circumstances, I made this plan in May. So the book was scheduled for this time. The review was scheduled for this month in May. So just the fact that he's all over the headlines right now was not my intention, was not my plan. I had no idea this was going to happen all the way back in May. So, about the book. Very interesting book, and it's a classic example of the sort of book that a natural leader would write. Because most leaders that are natural at it have not sat down and really analyzed what it is that they're doing. So he had no leadership training. He's a lawyer, and then did a bunch of trial stuff and ended up being the mayor of New York City and all that sort of thing. So he didn't have any training, but he wrote down, here's what I did in these circumstances at these times. So it's great, but not sitting down and thoroughly looking at what it is that he was doing or how he was applying leadership principles. So if you're looking for a book about wisdom that's got lots of great leadership examples, this is it. If you're looking for a checklist with steps on how to be a leader, this is not it, because leadership is a philosophy, not a checklist. One of the things I love about this book is I was reading through, and probably, 80% of the way through, he said, hey, all you have to do is have a guiding philosophy and know what you're trying to do and good people, and you can get things done. Clearly the definition of leadership. So very nice. And what's great is he's got several thoughts, principles, ideas, and each one of those is directly tied to the philosophy, and I will show that as I go through. So for perspective, once again, this is a great book to read about what a leader is doing in a given set of circumstances. I would almost guarantee that if we were to put him in a different set of circumstances with a different bunch of things, he would still have great outcomes because of his philosophical approach and the fact that he instinctively knows how to get things done. So, very exciting. And one other thing, what was the other thing I was going to say about this book? Oh yeah, it's a great story. Good. There's a bunch of great stories in there that are interesting. They're impactful. You get to see the underlying reasons why he made certain decisions, and that's, to me, a great book. So if you're looking for a way to develop leadership in people that have the talent, you have them read this book, because then it shows, hey, here's what you did in that circumstance. I would much rather go and read 10 books written by natural leaders and their circumstances and what they did, just to give me some more perspective of what to do during those times, than have some sort of a checklist that doesn't apply to anything. Anyway, so next do the PowerPoint, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Thanks. Alrighty, so here we are on the PowerPoint portion. And as I talked about, I'm going to go through and just review the concepts that Rudy talks about and then align them with the philosophy and some other stuff. So let's just go right down here. Principles. First things first. So he talks about starting every day off with a meeting. All right, it makes sense, right? If you're, get everything organized at the beginning to go on, fine. I like that idea. Prepare relentlessly. Good, right? No issues there. Next is everyone's accountable all the time. Good. I have no qualms or no problems with any of the things that are in here. Surround yourself with great people. You hear that all the time. Reflect and decide. I like that because remember we did the thing Solitude and Leadership by William Deresiewicz, and it's what he talks about. You got to spend some time thinking. Under promise, over deliver, always a good idea. Develop and communicate strong beliefs. Be your own man. Loyalty, the vital virtue. Wedding is discretionary, funeral is mandatory. Stand up to bullies. Study, read, and learn independently. And then organize around a purpose. Great. So if you look at all those, well, what do they all have in common? Oh, and then bribe only those who will stay bribed, which is a funny one. I saw that. I was going, wait a minute, you got all this stuff. So these are the principles that are talked about in the book. Well, what's that? First things first. Well, that's the definition, right? Because in there he talks about you get everything, you get, here's the goals that we have. We have a meeting to start off every day to get updates on all that sort of stuff. And then, applying resources or different things to get that job done. Well, that's attuning competence and environmental hierarchies in pursuit of the goal. And then you check every time, right? This also would be vigilance because you're keeping track of where you're trying to go on a given goal. Prepare relentlessly. Same idea. What do we need to get the job done? What sort of environmental things do we have to have? Who is the best people, or what training are we missing? What developmental factors are missing? Well, that's still the leadership definition. So if you're going to go prepare, what do you have to prepare for? Goal. Who's doing the preparing? Competence hierarchies. And then what are you doing? What's the operating environment? That's the environment, right? Everyone's accountable all the time. Easy. If you've been paying attention to the videos over time, that's integrity and vigilance, right? So somebody says they're supposed to do something and they make a mistake, hold them accountable. Somebody should say, I am the one that's responsible for this, and I'm the one that messed up, or I'm the one that's going to get it, or I'm the one that's going to make sure it gets accomplished. And then paying attention, vigilance. Now, at the same time, I did these as the primaries, but every one, you'll notice I'll be able to do this with every one of them. This is also empathy. Let's say that somebody makes a mistake and you find out that they tried their hardest, they had the best intentions, they went to do everything bad, and stuff just messed up. Are you going to destroy that person because they made a mistake? No. If they lie about it, sure. But if they say, I tried to do everything and Murphy happened. All right, well, that's empathy. And it's also humility, because saying that you're accountable for a catastrophic problem is, it's humbling. All right, surround yourself with great people. Well, what do we think that is? All right, humility, integrity, and empathy. So what have we talked about several other times, especially back during the initial hypothesis, the leadership hypothesis, is that the leader is 99% of the time not the best at anything in the organization, except for the leadership stuff. And so you want to make sure that something's done right. You go find the best person to do it. I have seen, and I have also done myself several times, I need this done. Who's the best? I'm not. Let me go find the best. Hey, I need you to help me out with this, blah, 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 blah. It gets done. Amazing, right? Then you also have integrity, because if you admit to yourself that you are not the best and you're trying to get the goal done, you go find the best person. That's integrity, because you are having integrity within yourself, right? And then empathy. Now, why do you say empathy? Or why do I say empathy? Well, if you've got somebody who is the best at the job and is a little bit rough around the edges and a little coarse, but they're going to get the job done right, well, you might have to go do some other things to smooth over to unruffle the feathers of the people that might be bothered that this megalomaniac is saving the day. But that's okay, right? And then vigilance. Maybe you hire somebody that's the best and they're really, really good. And next thing you know, 2 years later, they start getting lazy and you hire somebody else that's 3 times better than that person. What are you going to do? You put the best person in there and say, look, either, I think we've talked about this in another video, you step your game up, or I'm going to replace it with somebody who's doing better. Because then the goal is you have to maintain and you have to stay the best. You have to keep working to be the best. You can't just get in somewhere and get lazy. Reflect and then decide. This is the definition, right? Do I have the right people? Is the environment right? Are we meeting the goal? Is this decision going to make that goal? That's the definition of leadership. And then vigilance, right? You've got to pay attention. You make sure that you're doing the right thing. Make sure the team's doing the right thing. And then also integrity and humility, because maybe, we've talked about this before, maybe you made a decision or a leader made a decision that ended up causing a bunch of chaos. And then they have to go and they look at it and say, wow, here was my intention. Here's what we got. And it's my fault. Well, I need to go out there and admit it, because then everybody's, I can't waste any more time. Let me go out there and fix the problem. Under promise and over deliver, integrity, empathy, and vigilance, right? I know that I can get this done. So this is what we're going to do. But I might be able to get these other 4 things done. So we're going to say we're going to do this and see if we can do that, and then give everything we got. Because here's the deal. I love this one. Like I just said, you've got 1 thing you know you can do, and 4 you don't. 4 that you might be able to do. So you try really hard and you get 3 of the 4 done. So you go in and suddenly you've given this person 300% more than they expected. You didn't get the 4th one, but they don't know that, right? So that's integrity too. I know that we can get this done. I'm gonna promise you this, and you promise rarely, and then we're going to give you all this other sort of stuff. This is also empathy, because you have to, you've got that feeling. Ooh, we might be able to do a little bit better. Let me see how much more we can do. Great. And then vigilance, pay attention. Hey, did we promise this? Did we say we're going to make this deadline? Are we still going to meet this deadline? Is anything distracting from it? That's all vigilance. And then humility, because once again, you might have to go back and you might have to call in some help, right? If the goal is to get something done and you need more resources, sometimes it takes humility to go, look, I thought that I had everything I needed, and here we go. All right, develop and communicate strong beliefs. Well, once again, this is the definition, because saying why you're doing something, that's the environment. Saying that, here's the goal, our philosophy or our concept for achieving goals, that's part of the definition. And then empathy, because you want to know why you're doing something. The people that are working on the project need to know why they're doing something. And so if you've got a belief that's strong enough, or that's undergirding why you're making these decisions, you have to make sure everybody knows that. Because they might think, well, the other 22 times we did it this way. Well, yeah, now all these conditions are different. We've got to do it differently. So you have to make sure that you communicate that. Be your own man, be your own person, right? I get it. So this is, again, the definition and integrity, because competence, environment, goal. Are you the most competent? Do you know everything that you need? Do you know what you're doing? Are you doing everything that you possibly can as a leader to make things happen? One of the things that I think I've talked about before, but I'll mention again for this purpose, is that as a leader, you have to have a certain amount of ego, right? I am not going to fail. We're not going to fail this operation. But then you have to go relentlessly, get the team motivated, or get the team organized, or get everybody working towards achieving that goal. You're not doing any of the work, but you have to say, I'm not going to fail, or we're going to get this done. But then you have to now go and, using the philosophy, get the team to help you achieve that goal. And then what happens when you achieve it? You give them all the credit, right? Now, loyalty, the vital virtue. This one is interesting to me. It's great, because yes, you should be loyal. But what's the definition of loyalty really mean? So if, let's say that I'm your boss, or you're my boss, and I completely goof something up, and you're leading me, you watching. So you've got lots of respect for me. I've got a great track record. I do all this other sort of stuff, and I completely mess this thing up. Well, are you going to have my back if I completely mess up? Or are you going to sit down and say, listen, I got to be honest with you. You really messed this up. Now, once again, this is the empathy part. Did I do it intentionally? Did I do all that sort of stuff? But if you're loyal to me, it just doesn't mean that you always have my back no matter what I do. It should be, hey, I have your back, and I'm also going to tell you when you're messing up and when you're doing great. That's loyalty. If you're really loyal to somebody, you will also tell them when they've made a big mistake, right? And you also have to have the integrity. hey, they go off and make some wacky decision that's going to destroy their career or something, and you sit down with them and say, are you sure you want to do this? Because here's what I see is going to happen. That's loyalty. Not, oh, this person just went and embezzled $10,000 from the company, but I got their back. No, that you can't be that loyal. However, somebody, gives you a hand up and gives you some piece of education and does something to motivate you and helps you progress in your career, and then later on they come on a hard time or they need a hand up, well, go take care of them, right? That's loyalty. But loyalty is also the opposite side. And then, humility once again, because, hey, you might, what's the thing? Don't step on people's necks on the way up because they'll step on yours on the way down, or whatever that one is. So the humility part is, hey, you end up being in some great thing. Now suddenly let me go back and take care of the person that took care of me, because you wouldn't have been there without them, right? Just because you might have had better chances or something else. All right. Weddings discretionary, funerals mandatory. This is empathy, right? So this is a great example, and the story in the book is great. He talks a lot about what happened pre 9/11, post 9/11. But the thing is that you can't say, oh, I'm sorry for your loss, or I feel bad this happened to you. You got to show it. Pardon me. You got to go show it. Now, weddings, you go to weddings and yeah, it's fine and all that sort of stuff. Cool. But those are all happy, positive times, and maybe you might have something else going on. Okay, you don't need to go to every wedding. But when people are suffering and when things are tough, especially if you might have been the person that made the decision to cause something to happen, you need to go be there. Right? You need to show that it's important. Because what have we talked about all the time? None of this stuff is a checklist that you can do. If you read all of these principles that Rudy Giuliani talked about, they're all performance-based. You can't just look at a checklist and say, oh yeah, it's all performance. So yeah, when people are in a rough spot, you need to go check on them. You got to take care of them when things are going well too. But, people need to know that you're there when things are rough, because when things are rough, they might need help. So that's empathy. Stand up to bullies. Hey, this is all of them, right? Somebody's ranting and raving and being a tyrant, you got to stop it, right? At some point in the future, I'm going to do Man's Search for Ultimate Meaning and the Gulag Archipelago, but it talks about it extensively in there. If you let somebody be a punk and berate somebody or cause a bunch of issues and be condescending and push people around and all that sort of stuff, it's going to completely erode and make your whole work environment toxic. And so he talks about, a story from his childhood about it. But honestly, if you say, I will not stand for this in my organization, and then somebody does it, you have to go destroy their soul, because it'll wake them right up, right? And the thing that everybody knows about bullies is they always pick on somebody that they perceive as weaker than them. They never pick on somebody who's stronger. So you just got to go in there and do it. And you got to put yourself in the shoes of the other person. Somebody's being a complete idiot at work, you got to go stop it. It doesn't matter, because when you say, I'm not going to stand for this, and then you let it happen, you got a problem. Okay. Study, read, and learn independently. So I love this one because this is vigilance, right? Do I know everything I need to know about this? Or do I know all there is to know? Or am I looking at the same source that everybody else has looked at? Or am I going to find something different? You've heard me say in my other videos, I try to go as close to the source as possible, because there'll be the initial thought and then a bunch of people will write about that. I try to go back to the original source to see what the intention was. But if you remember from the opening hypothesis, we said one of the things that a leader needs is openness to experience. Well, there it is. He talks about it all the time. Go find stuff, read about what you're trying to do. You get in a new situation. I'm going to go read a bunch about it. He has a great example where he had to go work in a coal mine, And he went and read a whole bunch about coal mining. He knew nothing about it. Trained lawyer from New York City suddenly is in Kentucky learning about coal mining. Organize around a purpose. Well, that's easy, right? That's the definition. Attenuate competence environment. Attune competence environment goals. And then the last one is bribe only those who will stay bribed. When I read this one at first, I went, what the heck does that mean? Well, what it really means is don't bribe anyone. The way that you get people to work with you is by having integrity. So you keep your word when you're dealing with somebody. And then you got to pay attention to them, because you might be dealing with somebody that's a slime bag. You might be dealing with somebody that's got ulterior motives. But you don't have a choice. And so vigilance, you got to pay attention to them. So it's like you keep your word, and hopefully, and then through paying attention and sort of getting the feeling for what's going on, you're going to be able to get the job done or work with this person. Because you bribe somebody, what's the first thing that happens if you bribe somebody? Well, that means they can be bribed. So they're going to end up going after somebody else and looking for a different, somebody else will be able to buy them out. But if you keep your word and say, as long as we interact with integrity, I will keep working with you, that's going to have a much more long-term effect or a long-term benefit than anything else. So anyway, that's it. But if you notice, now these are the primary ones, but if you read the book several different times, in every situation he's talking about, well, I had to find the person that was the best at this, or I had to go do this, or I had to watch this, or we had to keep an eye. So he talks about it all the time. And like I said, at one point towards the end, he says, as long as you have an underlying or guiding philosophy and your goals, then you can get a team together to get things done. Love that. The one thing that I found a little difficult is you sort of get the impression that he thinks you can teach anybody to be a leader. And I still disagree. It's still two parts. I can teach somebody all of this, but they have to have the talent to go apply it. You hear all the time, this is the art of leadership. Okay, well, if it's an art, I can go and teach somebody about color palettes and how to do brush strokes and all this sort of stuff, but can they actually create a painting? Most of the time, no, or something that's worth looking at. Most of the time, not. And so these are all great, and if you're a leader and you've got the talent and you go and look at these, you go, oh, cool, I understand. Or I know how I'm going to guide myself through that. So I still disagree that you can teach people how to be effective leaders, because it's all performance-based. I go and give you a test. Okay, give me these, I forget how many this is. It's like 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So here's the 14 principles from Rudy Giuliani. Recite them. Okay, you're a leader. No, you're not. Right? You still have to be able to go and apply them. And how you apply them is going to change all the time. So he gives 3 different examples, the one about a coal mine, one about being the mayor, and I forgot the third example. But in each one of them, he goes in, he behaves with integrity, he has empathy, has vigilance, and then he exercises the definition. So 3 different, completely disparate situations with no formal training, he was able to do this. Nobody taught him this. He talks about his parents setting a good example for him, but nobody taught him all that stuff. So then how can you turn around and say, sure, you can teach anybody that? If you actually pay attention, I don't think you can. Because there's a whole bunch of people that have gone through a bunch of this sort of stuff and aren't able to do this. So yes, I can teach you to pass a test, but I can't teach you to perform. So that's the difference, right? It's a hairy distinction, but we're going to have some examples over the next few months that'll discuss that. Anyway, I believe, let me see how long this has gone. I think this is a little bit shorter than normal. Yeah, a little bit shorter today. But once again, great book. Great stories. well written. It's conversational. It's very comfortable to read. It's a really good book. So I highly recommend you go out and read it. But once again, you'll notice that there's not, hey, here's the steps. It's here's the concept and here's how I applied the concept in that certain set of circumstances. You completely change the circumstances, you might have to apply the concept differently. And as I always say, I'm not sponsored by anybody on these things. So, whatever revenue he gets from the sale of his book, he gets. I get nothing. I'm not complaining. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you have a great day.